Welcome to Football Analysis. One of the most impressive teams of the season so far have got to be Benfica. They sit top of the Primeira Liga and are through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League, where they will face Inter Milan. But what got them here, and why will Inter Milan not be confident going into this game? Let's break down 5 things we learnt from Benfica when they face Brugge in the Champions League. Pivots are key to Benfica's style of play. Benfica play with a double pivot, and these 2 pivots are key to how Benfica play. In this situation, Benfica have come close to losing possession, so Chiquinho has realised the danger and slotted in between the 2 centre-backs to prevent a transition. This has allowed centre-back Antonio time on the ball as the free man to start another attack. You'll see the second pivot, Florentino Luis, maintain his position in the centre, covering a Brugge midfielder. The 2 midfielders then join up again as a double pivot in front of the 2 centre-backs, before Florentino sees that the right back is on the move and there will be space behind him, so he moves over to cover this area and prevent any transitions. Chiquinho, the pivot in charge of covering the defence, drops back to form a 3-man defence, and this draws a midfielder onto him, opening up some space in the midfield for Rafa to drop between the lines, dragging a defender with him. This actually forces a slightly bigger gap between the centre-backs, and Chiquinho now plays a through ball to Ramos in that space. If there's any danger, both pivots will drop into the defensive line, actually leaving the real centre-backs a little in limbo. As Benfica build up, we can see Otamendi has the confidence to bring the ball out of defence into the midfield because he knows that one of the 2 pivots will cover this area. Benfica's pressing is very organised. Benfica showed us that they are very organised and aggressive in their pressing, not including the goalkeeper, who could act as a spare man. Benfica are pressing man on man, and they have a very clear plan to make the opposition pass to their right back, who is temporarily free. Once they have done that, the left-sided midfielder sprints over to block off any return pass, while the other attackers cover the centre-backs. When the ball is played down the line, this triggers the left back to press, sandwiching the player with the ball. The right back then gets the ball under pressure and his pass down the line is picked off by Chiquinho, the pivot who is now covering the vacated left back slot. Okay, so we know that Brugge is not the highest level opponent, but Benfica's pressing in this game was very effective, with the striker cutting off a return pass in his cover shadow, and the midfielders and left back covering the other players with tight marking on the ball side. Brugge are forced into a long ball that is soon won back by Benfica in the midfield. The only caveat to this is that if a team had the capabilities to switch the ball quickly to the non-ball side, Benfica could find themselves outnumbered. Benfica build up by packing the midfield. From goal kicks, Benfica will use their centre-backs either side of the keeper, and their full-backs will be pushed up slightly. The 2 pivots remain central, giving Benfica the stability. Although the full-backs are in space, Benfica will hold off using them for as long as possible, as they try to push them higher up the pitch. Instead, they will play through the centre, while their full-backs gradually form a front 4 or 5. In possession, Benfica crowd out the central midfield area with their wide attackers, taking up central positions. This then allows them to have control of the midfield. And should the opposition follow suit by doing the same, then it means Benfica will look to exploit the space down the flanks with their fullbacks. A long pass from the defender in behind Brugge's defence sees the right back bar in on goal and wins a free kick on the edge of the penalty area. This is Benfica's basic shape when building up. They have their 2 pivots forming a box with the centre-backs to provide the stability for the team. They then will have their wide attackers join the number 10 in a narrow midfield as they try to find spaces between the lines. The fullbacks will push up into the spaces that have been created by Benfica's wide attackers. We can then see the striker standing in an offside position. Benfica will look to get the ball to their fullbacks, who will then cross the ball into the striker and attacking midfielders in the box as soon as possible. Formations don't exist for Benfica. Most teams will have lines of players and we can determine what kind of formation they have, whether it be in the offensive phase or the defensive phase. But Benfica don't have this. Here we can see that the pivot has dropped into the back, so we can say that it is a 3. But for the others, it's just players occupying the midfield and trying to find the spaces. This kind of unidentified system seems to cause some confusion for the opposition, as they are not able to have any clear lines of defence. With the Brugge backline confused and out of alignment, it has allowed the wide attackers to find space in onside position. The left back overlapped, and this led to Benfica's third goal of the game. It's a similar thing when out of possession, that the team doesn't really have a formation, but will press on the ball side in a group of 3 whenever possible. And Benfica have very aggressive players in their midfield and defence to do this, and win the ball back pretty quickly. We can see 2 defenders here, and we can see that there are 6 in the midfield, and there are 2 up front, so this would make a 2-6-2 formation, which would be uncommon, and I don't think Roger Schmidt said go out and form a 2-6-2. But we can see that Benfica like to flood the midfield and have their 2 fullbacks out wide. They are not fullbacks that invert. These midfielders are constantly mobile, so it means that they can shuffle forward when needed to support the striker, or shuffle back to support the defence when needed. And I think that it is the principle of Roger Schmidt's tactics, in that a packed midfield provides flexibility. Benfica can go all the way. In the Champions League, a place in the final or one better is a possibility. The whole team understands the tactics and how to win football matches. This team can dominate possession, but it's their pressing and counter-attacking style that might see them defeat one of the bigger teams when the time comes.